Welcome to another session of our master course, Product and Business Planning, how to start a business from scratch, basically. We stopped talking about the entrepreneurial team in the framework of business plan development. And I love the quote from Kleiner, who said, "I invest in people, not in ideas." And that gives a very, very good understanding of how important and how instrumental and paramount human capital is. Because it is all about the people who also, when you think about existing companies, who push things forward, who think out of the box, who have a conceptual intelligence to forward ideas, proposals, who are interacting with the customer. So, and that is not only applicable and important in the B2C and B2B arena when it comes to products, but also when it comes to services in general, because the people have a strong impact on the perception of the brand and the company. Only good teams, excellent teams, will be able to overcome the challenges during the execution of a business idea, because you need to really think outside of the box. You need to have a lot of imagination, but also you need to plan very, very thoroughly. The team of founders must possess the necessary technical and business qualifications. Of course, one founder, if it's only one founder, one entrepreneur, cannot possess all the necessary technical and business qualifications. So himself or herself, that is not possible. However, of course, when it comes to the entrepreneurial team or the entrepreneur who's looking for a team to build a startup, to start a business from scratch, he or she has to look for sophisticated stuff to build the entity and the enterprise. How do you do that? First of all, you need a depiction of the course team motivation. That is the starting point when you set up a team. Then you need to have a description of the entrepreneurial team and the qualification of its team members. That is also part of the business case. And in the online material, you can see that each of the product proposals or the business plan proposals have a section which involves the team. We say, okay, this is the team leader or this is the founder of the organization, and he or she is having these kind of qualifications, experience, and expertise. So you need to lay down who's responsible for which area of business. So like finance, marketing, research and development, for example, or sales. You need to depict the division of tasks. Like I just mentioned, you need to specify who does what. If necessary, a quick description of the board of directors or advisory board is helpful as well. That is what I experience a lot, because I'm consulting a lot of startup companies, and I'm also holding shares of a lot of startup companies, being member of the advisory board or board of directors. So it may be useful to think about, probably not for the university project, but if you really want to start a business, to think about which kind of expertise may I need in the advisory board, and also who are experts outside of the organization that may be signaling a certain kind of qualification and reputation to the outside world, basically to investors. So if you're starting up a business and you manage to hire people for the advisory board who are distinguished experts in their area of expertise, that this may help you as well in also getting enough funding. So my recommendations would be: create an advisory board, because it adds to the reputation and trustworthiness of your business. Also describe unfilled positions and note with open. You can also do that via social media, for example, via posting a job and vacancy on LinkedIn or Stepstone. Additionally, describe advisors. So which advisors are you working with, for example, when it comes to legal questions, when it comes to tax questions? And probably also add subcontractors. So companies you work with or that are important in the supply chain, that are important when it comes to logistics. So questions to be answered: who are the members of your team, right? And what makes them special? What are their qualifications? What is their experience? And are you covering enough soft skills, but also hard skills as well, such as finance, for example? Is that all represented in your team and their capability? Which experiences and abilities does the team have? I just mentioned that. Which experience and abilities are missing probably from the team, and how are you compensating for that? I just talked about that a couple of minutes ago when I was talking about legal advisors, for example, or tax advisors. So you may also hire freelancers, people outside of the organization, to give advice to your company. Which goals are the team members pursuing during the business startup? For example, how committed are they towards the joint goal? For example, if you start a business, it is worthwhile thinking about giving people shares of the company. So that, for example, if a company is developing and is probably later becoming listed on the stock market, that they will be benefiting from that. Has the team already worked together successfully in the past? For how long have they been knowing each other? Because that signals also to investors the some kind of likelihood to be successful in a given market. So after we talked about the executive summary and the product and service, it's also important to think about, like I said, to think about the entrepreneurial team, which is important for the kickoff. Then next step is market and competitor analysis. No matter what you do, which kind of product or service you have, you need to look at the market, of course. And then there are many questions if you look at the market. First of all, the market size and market growth. So how big is the market in terms of volume? I think we talked about that before. If we quickly look at the terminology, I think we did that before. If this is a market, a pie like that, this would be what we call the market volume. This is the volume in a market. The volume is all the sales in a given market put together. And the volume is comprised of different kind of shares. So these are market shares belonging to certain kind of companies. So these are market shares. And then we always have, let's choose a different color for that. And then we have a so-called outer ring here, like that. And this one is the market potential. How much can you potentially sell in a given market? And the difference between the volume and the potential is the growth reserve. It is indicating to which extent the market is saturated. So we call it, if we divide one by another, we call that market saturation degree. And then it is a question, for example, it depends on the newness of your product. If you have a completely new product, new to the world product, probably you're defining a new market. There is no market out there. But probably you're also having an idea which is trying to conquer, to take away market share from competitors. So probably you're already in the market or you're stepping into a market. The question is then, how can you generate market share, which is already existing? So how can you get, as company C, for example, how can you get a piece of cake, of the cake from A, for example? You can also think about acquiring, even if you're a startup, acquiring a market player already being present in the market. So you may buy simply A in the framework of what we call mergers and acquisitions process. But you can also try to get market share away from A, because your innovation, your new product or your new service has a certain kind of killer feature, a value add that competitors don't have, which makes it able for you, enables you to step into the market. And generically speaking, you also think about how can you potentially enlarge the market as such as well. How can you enlarge the market? How can you tap uncontested market space? So you need to know about the number of competitors in the market, but also you need to know about the number of customers. How many customers are in a market? And also, who are the potential customers? So not only who are currently buying a certain kind of product or service, but who also may buy a certain product or service. Then you also, in this framework, you think about market segmentation. We talked about market segmentation before, and I was giving an example. If we quickly do that and summarize that again, if this is a market, not by geography, but that is just the size of a market, we may divide a market into different kind of segments with respect to different kind of criteria. Criteria may be completely different. Demographics, lifestyle, for example, all kinds of variables, age, sex, income, lifestyle. I mentioned that before. I'm always taking the example of Nike. I think we did it before, but let me quickly summarize that again. So we can also, if we're Nike, we can segment the market with respect to the kind of sports, for example. So we have a market here for football, and we have a market for biking, and we have a market for running, and we have a market for golf, and we have a market for, I don't know, American football. We have a market for swimming. We have a market for paragliding, and so on and so forth. And that is market segmentation. You can also look at the market for sports apparel, dividing it into completely different kind of segments. So you forget about the sports, but you divide a market just into the sports apparel market for example, children being aged 5 to 9. That is also a segment of the market. You can segment a market with respect to different criteria, and there are, I don't know, endless ways to segment a market. For example, I think I mentioned that before, and it's a very good example, 𝗬𝗄𝗄, cat. They were looking at the market for smartphones, and they segmented the market not with respect to price, but with respect to usage. And they said there are the people, the workers working on construction sites, they have specific requirements when it comes to smartphones. And what they did was they defined a new kind of market for rugged smartphones. Or another example, and I think I was mentioning that as well, is Dodo. Dodo is one of the leaders, Dodo, when it comes to smartphones for old people, for senior people. And they simply looked at the market and say, okay, we don't want to compete with Apple so much, because a 70-plus-year-old woman is not likely, probably not likely to use an iPhone, because they don't need all the functions, they don't need the internet, for example. And they segmenting They were segmenting the market of smartphones with respect basically to age. Very simply, only they were using age. And they are the world market leaders, or one of the world market leaders, when it comes to smartphones for old people. Now that is interesting because it shows how powerful market segmentation can be. Market segmentation enables us to also to step into a market which is already existing, but where we have very few competitors. For example, if you manage to tackle a problem, for example, the problem that children may probably have with smartphones, not when it comes to usage, but the parents, they're worrying what the little ones are doing with the smartphones all the time. So you want a good control over the activities of the children. And there is, in fact, I forgot the name of the company, but there are, in fact, very specific players in the market only offering smartphones for children being under 10 years of age. So identification of all possible areas of application and justification on focusing on a particular area. After you segmented the market, you need to look at certain kind of segments and say, okay, this is the segment I want to be in, I want to be attacking, I want to be dealing with. Then you assess the competitive situation through a strength and weaknesses analysis. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of competitors who are already in the given market? And then you position yourself against the competitors through explanation of your USP, what is your unique selling proposition? What can you do better than the players who are already in the market? That is, of course, the decisive point in the end. So what is the value add in terms of price or quality or whatever with respect to competitors? The basic tool we are using here is the SWOT analysis. That is a very powerful tool, and we know that probably from, or you know that probably from some marketing or strategy courses. I will talk about that in a couple of minutes. First of all, if you look at the market, how are you gathering data, or what is the importance of marketing research in this respect, or market research in this respect? We differentiate two basic forms of data collection. One is, let's start with this one, although it's called secondary data, but that is usually the first step you're doing. Why is that the first step? Because secondary data collection, we call that desk research. We call that desk research. Why is that called desk research? Because you can do it from your desk. Desk research. In German we would say Schreibtischforschung. Because you already, and you only look at data which is already available on the internet, which is available on sites such as Statista.de, for example, or 𝗕statis.de, for example. So secondary data is data that is already existing and that has been collected before. The advantage is, of course, it is quick, it is cheap. However, the question may be, is it relevant to your question? Is it relevant to your question? Is it really directly tackling the problem you are defining with your business? Is the data available? Could be if it's not a non-public source. And the problem is also, is the data eventually obsolete? So when has this data been collected, right? Are the I don't know, Generation Z people still behaving the way the I don't know, Shell study suggested 5 years ago? Then as a second step, you're doing primary data collection, which is really collecting data yourself. Or you can also have an agency doing that for you. But basically, the internet provides multiple opportunities to do it yourself, for example, via online questionnaires. The problem is, of course, it takes a lot of time. So that's a negative, that's a con. And it is very expensive because it's time consuming. However, the good thing about that is it's very specific. You can very specifically ask your target customers about their needs and wants. It's better controllable and it's up to date. What are sources of data in general? Like I just mentioned, secondary data can be found on the internet. Then you have several databases which are available, but there are also some industry associations like Industrie- und Handelskammer, or there are public statistics. I mentioned that before, die Statis, for example, or also Statista. You can also use white papers from consulting companies, for example, or from companies such as Google, who also, or Shell, who are also doing from time to time certain kind of studies. Primary data, like I said, you can do a survey. You can ask experts, suppliers, customers, competitors, even your own stuff, sales stuff. You can observe customers. That is always a good, actually that is always a very, very good indicator. It's a very good tool. Doesn't look like that, but we call that customer process monitoring. Customer process monitoring is a very, very good tool to understand what are issues of customers when they're doing certain things. For example, Apple, before they introduced the MagSafe for their laptop computers, they had a lot of hundreds of presentations being watched, and it happened all over and over again that people, presenters, they fell over the power cable and the computer fell onto the ground, and that was a big issue because the presentation was being interrupted. And this led to the conclusion that it would be very, very cool to have MagSafe, so the power cable attached with a magnetic mechanism to the laptop computer. Commission market analysis, laboratory experiments, document analysis could also be done, of course. Now, this is coming from my marketing book. It's a very good overview on how a SWOT analysis works and how it is how powerful it really is. First of all, what do we need to do when we do a market and competitor analysis? We have to look at the internal factors as well as the external factors. The internal factors are the strengths and weaknesses of a corporation, of a company. So these are the strengths and weaknesses. Now, the external factors are the opportunities and threats. And that makes up the acronym here, with the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It is very important to understand that the strengths and weaknesses are internal, whereas the external factors are opportunities and threats. And these are coming from a tool, I think we talked about that slightly before, which is called the PEST analysis. And the PEST analysis is looking at political, economic, social, and technological factors and their influence on the business. These go into the SWOT analysis. And let's look at that. So the SWOT analysis is listing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then it is doing a so-called enhanced matrix, and it is looking at a matching. So these are the internal factors, like I just mentioned, strength and weaknesses, and these are the external ones coming from a PEST analysis. Here is an even better slide for that, to explain what the PEST analysis and the SWOT analysis, how they fit together. Here you have the macro environment, for example, political, economic, social, technological factors, and they go into the opportunities and threats. And here you have comparison of resources and abilities, and you match them against competitors, and you arrive at strength and weaknesses. It is very important to understand that a strength is only a strength if it is a strength compared to competitors. And then we are doing a matching and a conversion and an avoidance strategy. Here, do we have the strength to take on our opportunities? And as threats and strength, how can we use our strength to repel the threats that we are exposed to? And the weaknesses, which chances do we miss because of our weaknesses? And the last question, strategic window, is which threats are we exposed to because of our weaknesses? And this is this enhanced matrix that has to be used for every kind of strategic competitor analysis. This may seem a bit abstract. So what we are doing, we are ending the session here. I'm ending the recording here, but as an exercise also for the viewers, they can try to do a pest and SWOT analysis for McDonald's. But I end the recording here because it would be too complex and would not add any kind of didactic value if I just do a SWOT analysis now for McDonald's. So thanks very much, and I see you for another session shortly.